Talking with the experts.
In episode 378, Crunch Ranjani discusses how repurposing content to minimise effort and maximise impact can be good for your business.
Yeah. And this is actually something that I help my clients with. And also I recommend a lot of people to, go this route, because I found that so many people, like thousands of people, have podcasts. They're putting out such great content on Instagram. They're sharing amazing information on Pinterest, on LinkedIn. But, the thing is, all of these platforms, well, podcasts aside, social media platforms don't belong to you. And there's no saying, I don't know if you guys remember, earlier this year, Facebook and Instagram went out for 6 hours and everybody was panicking because there was no way to get in touch with your thousands of followers, right? And all of the content that you had posted on there is basically gone if you hadn't made a backup of it. So I highly recommend that everybody repurposes the content that they're creating, whatever the platform is that you're creating it for. It can be repurposed to basically any other platform that you can imagine. So
Talking with the experts.
Talking with the Experts would love to acknowledge Global Glamping Charities Incorporated for generously supporting this podcast. Global Glamping Charities, solving homelessness in all of its forms. Reach out to them at globalglamping.org.
Welcome to Talking with the Experts. This is where we discuss great ideas to take your business to the next level. How do we know these ideas work? Well, it's because we're talking with business owners who are using these ideas. Business owners who have years of experience and expertise. All things business by business owners for business owners. And now, here is your host, Rose Davidson.
Hello and welcome to Talking with the Experts. I'm your host, Rose Davidson from talkingwiththeexperts.com. Talking with the Experts is about all things business by business owners for business owners. You can find it on all good podcasting streaming platforms and on YouTube. Let me ask you, have you been repurposing any of your content to minimise your effort and to maximise the impact? Well, one of the main things business owners struggle with is content for their business. And my next guest, Crunch Ranjani, can provide you with information on how to repurpose your content with minimal effort and maximum impact. And Crunch is a conversion, copyright and content creator for change makers and entrepreneurs who want to make an impact with the money and influence they have in their business. She's a firm believer that we need more diversity, equity and inclusion in our communities. Crunch helps like-minded business owners harness the power of words to get their message heard by a wider audience and create a bigger impact in the world. Crunch's superpower is writing snazzy blogs and articles and turning the monologues that you've been doing on Facebook and Instagram into a summoning spell that magically conjures up your ideal clients and appears the Google gods and appeases the Google gods. My goodness, I can't even read. Crunch is originally from Singapore, but now is a self-described global citizen and has travelled to over 50 countries and lived in a variety of places, including Thailand, Portugal, and Mexico. Without further ado, welcome, Crunch, and thank you so much for being with me today.
thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Lovely. Now tell me, how did you get into the business that you're doing it? What promoted you and what's your why for doing it?
Well, I kind of fell into my business by accident because I love to travel, and I started traveling with some savings that I had. And as things happen, you run out of money, and then you have to find a way to either, make more money, or you have to go back home. So I chose to find a way to start making money while I was on the road. And I got in touch. Well, a friend of mine asked me, "Crunch, you write a travel blog, and I know that you're a good writer. Would you be interested in writing articles or actually I started off writing podcast show notes for people with podcasts?" And I said, sure, why not? Like, let me give it a try. And And here we are. So from there, I started, networking with more business owners and getting more in touch with people who were interested in having somebody take the content writing part of their business off their plates. Because, I mean, whatever business you do, chances are you're not making money by writing content. Unfortunately, or fortunately, that's how, a lot of people these days find the people that they want to work with. I mean, when you have a problem, what do? You go to Google and you type in like, how can I fix my neck ache? And then you read a blog that tells you like 5 exercises that you can do to relax your neck, or you watch a YouTube video about, exercises that will bring you relief. And then you start following that person. And then over time, like when you really throw out your back, you're like, oh no, I need to go to a chiropractor. Who's the person that I've been following all this while, who's been giving me free advice and free information and all of this great, content that I've been consuming for months. I'm going to go to them, right? So that's essentially how content works, and that's kind of how I fell into it and what I do and why I do it.
So, one of the things that people can do as business owners is do guest posting in other people's, on their in their blogs, on their websites, on their Facebook page, their LinkedIn profile, LinkedIn profiles. How does that work, and how does one go about guest posting?
So guest posting, I think, is a great and fairly underutilized tool in terms of reaching a new audience. And I like to recommend that people find other business owners who have kind of adjacent businesses. So for example, if you are a yoga teacher, you might connect with other people who are in the health and wellness industry, maybe a Reiki practitioner, or a chiropractor, or even a doctor or medical professional who sometimes might recommend their patients to a yoga professional for certain ailments or for certain conditions, and that can be beneficial. And you can guest post on each other's profiles or each other's websites, and that helps you reach a wider audience just by talking to the same kind of people who would be interested in similar services, but you're not in competition with each other, and therefore there's no harm done in lifting each other's work up, So everybody wins. I think your audience, if you have a guest poster to share their valuable expertise on your podcast, for example, like I'm doing today with your audience, they'll find that, oh, this person gives me a lot of value in their own area of expertise, but they also know of other experts that they can refer me to or that I can learn from. And they go to trust you, and they trust your experts that you bring on. And, it's perfect for everybody involved, like not just the business owners, but also your audience and the people that you're ultimately trying to help, right? So I think it's wonderful. And all you have to do is just kind of like reach out to other people.
Backlinks, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Backlinks. Yes, you've got to have those backlinks, people. What are some content creation strategies that you would advocate for?
Content creation strategies, I like to, I think a lot of people think about content and they get very overwhelmed, and it's so understandable, right? Like these days, everybody's telling you need to be on social media, on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, on Snapchat, I don't know, all the social media platforms, and they're telling you to maintain your blog and be on LinkedIn, and I don't know, be on podcasts and run a YouTube channel, and it's a lot, right? So for me, I think what's really important is to find a rhythm that works for you, for your business, for your life. I mean, I think we can all agree that we're not robots, and we didn't start our businesses to be stuck in front of our computer producing endless amounts of content. Right. I mean, we started our businesses for whatever reasons, like whether it was to provide more financial security for ourselves and our families, or to, pursue a passion, or because you just were tired of working for somebody else. Right. And, to get stuck into the cycle of having to create content all the time, it can feel really overwhelming. So what I recommend is for people to find a platform or two that they really enjoy. Maybe it's Instagram, maybe it's LinkedIn, maybe it's writing a blog for your website, maybe it's a podcast that you really enjoy producing, right? So pick one and get really consistent with it. And when I say consistent, I don't mean you have to, put out a podcast every single day, or you have to post on social media 3 to 5 times a day, because some people say that you should do that. And that can also be very unsustainable, just because it's a lot, right? Who has time to do that? So when I see consistency, I mean, pick a rhythm that works for you, whether that's once a week or once a month, or, once every 2 weeks, whether you're, putting out a blog post once a month, or you're writing a social media caption that is meaningful and valuable, but you're only writing it once a week. Whatever works for you, find that rhythm and stick to it, and consistently show up even when you don't feel like it. And what really helps with that is, I think, something that I learned about some time ago about batching. So for those of you who are not familiar with the concept of batching, is to just kind of sit down at your desk or your computer, or wherever it is that you create your content, and kind of churn out 3 to 5 or 12 content pieces, or whatever number you set yourself, or for a certain amount of time. You give yourself like an hour, and you give yourself a target. Okay, I'm going to write 6 content pieces. I'm going to write 6 captions for Instagram, right? And you just do them all at once, because it kind of like gets your brain into this mode of doing the one task, and then you don't have to sit in front of your phone and be like, well, what do I write on Instagram today? Right? So batch creating things can make it easier. And then these days, there's so many scheduling tools. And if you have like a VA, you can even outsource that to somebody else if you hate doing that. I have my VA take care of my scheduling. So I just like write my posts once a week, and I send it over to her, and she makes magic happen. So getting help where you can. Maybe you don't like writing, and you like recording videos, like go with that. There's no hard and fast rule about what really works. You have to find what works for you, right? Essentially. And once you find that rhythm and that platform that you enjoy, and you can get into a consistent rhythm, I think you will start seeing the returns on that, and you will start seeing the results of the effort that you're putting in. So I guess that's my
Yeah,
that's
I
my big
agree.
tip.
I agree with all of that. I mean, I'm not a very good content creator. I like to do it batching. So I'll just sit down one night and just make a whole lot of Canva templates, and, put some stuff out there, and then I'll schedule them, using Content Creator on Facebook. And then I often forget LinkedIn, but, I use a content scheduler for that, and just put them all in there. And, it takes me a night. And so, and that's a whole month worth of content. Blog writing, I'm not so good at. I have plenty of content to pick from. I mean, I've done over 300 interviews, 370 something interviews, so I've got plenty of content. But it's the fact, I think, of going back through each interview and just trying to pick out the best bits. It's quite time consuming. So that might be a job I might need to outsource to someone.
I volunteer. And this is actually something that I help my clients with. And also I recommend a lot of people to, go this route, because I found that so many people, like thousands of people, have podcasts. They're putting out such great content on Instagram. They're sharing amazing information on Pinterest, on LinkedIn. But the thing is, all of these platforms, well, podcasts aside, social media platforms don't belong to you. And there's no saying, I don't know if you guys remember, earlier this year, Facebook and Instagram went out for 6 hours, and everybody was panicking because there was no way to get in touch with your thousands of followers, right? And all of the content that you had posted on there is basically gone if you hadn't made a backup of it. So I highly recommend that everybody repurposes the content that they're creating, whatever the platform is that you're creating it for. It can be repurposed to basically any other platform that you can imagine. So take, for example, this podcast that we're having now. We're sharing lots of information, we're giving tips and stuff. You can repurpose this into a blog post that lives on your website. That's great for SEO. It's great for boosting traffic when people search for information related to whatever we're talking about. People are going to visit your website. They're more likely to know about you, learn about what you do. You can repurpose this as social media posts, catch little snippets of it, make a little audiogram, or, grab a quote from it that was particularly important or poignant. share that on social media, or share like 3 main tips about repurposing content from this interview. And you're just pulling that out from one piece of content, which is this podcast. And then you can, you're already posting this to YouTube. You can share it on Facebook. You can share it on, Instagram or Snapchat, wherever it is. And ta-da, you have multiple uses for this one 30-minute interview that we're doing, right? So why waste the effort that you're putting into this? Why waste the time, the energy, the experts that you're bringing on? Get the most out of whatever content that you're creating by repurposing it. And if I may go on a little bit more, I also think that people need to be reminded, right? Like how social media or like the internet works this way is that we're not constantly in front of every single person. Like we're in our businesses, we know what we do, we know what we offer, and we might get tired of it, but I bet you if you ask like 50 people around you that you think you're friends with, or you're hanging out with on social media, and ask them like, hey, so what do you think I actually do? They might be like, well, you work in finance, maybe. So the thing is, like, people aren't paying that much attention, so you need to get in front of them all the time, or regularly or frequently, for them to be able to remember what it is you do, who you do it for, and what your business is all about, right? And you're constantly getting new people following you, so they wouldn't have seen your previous content. So there's no harm in like going back 3 months and like, hey, this caption that I wrote on Instagram was amazing. 50 people saw it. What about if another 50 people saw it? And you just take it and repurpose it with a new image and tweak it a little bit, and ta-da, you have a new caption.
Absolutely. Yep.
Less effort.
It makes heaps of sense. And I've had a few content creators on, and they pretty much all say the same thing: is repurposing is the way to go. And don't be frightened to repurpose stuff that you did a year ago, because people won't remember that, unless they've got a photographic memory, which not many people have. So, and more than likely they didn't see it anyway. So so it doesn't really matter if you reuse something, because quite honestly it saves you time and effort to have to keep searching for images and quotes and other bits and pieces when it's already there for you. And I keep absolutely everything that I've created. My computer is nearly full again. I have to buy another hard drive because I have so much, because I don't like to throw anything away in case I want to use it again sometime in the future. And so yeah, I'm a bit of a hoarder like that. I hoard information.
Well, that's wonderful, because now, I mean, if you ever need to take a break from your business for whatever reason, whether it's health reasons or you're going away on vacation, you still have tons of content that you can easily, in 30 minutes, you scroll back through and like, okay, these are my top performing posts or podcasts in the last 6 months or 3 years or whatever it is. Pull those out and ta-da, you have 6 months of new content that you can, that people haven't seen or heard.
That's it. Yeah, absolutely. It's really, it's not hard. It's just, I think you need to think outside the box a little bit.
Yeah. And also, like, stop telling yourself that, oh, people don't want to hear the same thing, because I mean, I'm sure you've seen, some people talk about the same thing over and over again, and you're not mad at them. So why do you think anybody else would be mad at you for saying the same thing? And if they are, maybe they're not your person, right? They don't want your services. They can unfollow. They're adults. You're not forcing them your content. They're free to consume what they want. So
yes, there's always scrolling, isn't there? You can always scroll past if you don't like it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Crunch, what tips would you advise, say if you had the top 5 tips on content creation or repurposing, what would be your top 5 tips?
Top 5 tips. Okay, so I would say get into a consistent rhythm. That would be my first tip. Whatever that rhythm is, I mentioned earlier, whether it's once a week or once a month, get into that consistent rhythm, because the algorithm, whether it's on social media or on search, on Google or whatever it is, they reward consistency, right? Once they've seen that you've posted, regularly every Tuesday, they're putting out a podcast, or every 3 times a week, they post something on their social media. They'll reward this consistency, and you may not see the results immediately, which is something that people can get stuck on, right? But if you're in it for the long game, then get into a consistent rhythm and stick to it. Batch your content so that you don't have to worry about it every single time that you want to post. You just have to worry about it once a week or once a month or whenever you figure out that you're going to create your content in a big chunk. The third thing that I would say is to repurpose any piece of content onto every other platform that you are active on or that you would like to be visible on. Whether it's from podcasts to social media or to blog posts or YouTube videos. You can even do it the reverse, right? Take a social media post and expand it into a blog post or expand it into a podcast episode or a YouTube video. So it works both ways. Like, it's not necessarily always just, from one direction to another. They all kind of feed into each other. It's all content in different forms. Those would be my 3 tips.
Yeah, I think, and I think the other one is just to be consistent. Don't post one week and then don't post the next, because people will, sometimes they're looking for your post, and if you're not there, they just lose interest and not look for you anymore, and and then your organic reach goes down, and then all sorts of horrible things happen, and you wonder, where have all my friends gone? Why aren't I seeing this stuff in my feed? And that's the reason why.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And I think especially with audio or video or podcast type of content, more so than written content, these things tend to be very powerful because people can see your face, they know who you are, they know how you speak, they hear your voice in their heads, like even when you're writing those things, if they've listened to your podcast, they can imagine your voice talking to them, and that really builds that trust and that relationship. And if we think about who you ultimately purchase from these days, and who you would like to interact with or you would like to be in community with, it's people that you know, right? You don't want to go and hang out with a bunch of strangers on the internet. But, Rose, I've heard Rose speak hundreds of times. She's basically my best friend. Like, she's with me in the kitchen. I take her on walks and, all that kind of stuff. And then
Isn't that nice?
you just get into, that relationship, and it might feel very personal to them when you stop showing up, and then they're like, what's happened to Rose? And I've heard of people who, they're in their cars and they're like switching on their favorite podcast that they always listen to on Tuesday mornings, and that person's not there for 1 week for whatever reason. Maybe there's a health crisis or something's happened and they don't have a podcast episode, and they're like, it has thrown off my entire morning. I don't know what to do. I can't function because I don't have this person's voice, speaking to me. It's kind of like, we just get into these habits, right? Humans are really creatures of habit and routine. And when that's thrown off, we feel betrayed, as strong as that sounds. But that's really the emotion that it elicits when you show up for a while and then you stop showing up. So yeah, consistency is, key and critical.
Yeah, and people don't buy from corporations anymore. They buy from people.
Exactly.
It's even if you don't post videos on your socials, as long as they can get a feel for the type of person that you are through your posts and your memes and your little, if you post games on there or whatever that you're doing, they'll get to know what type of person you are. And so yeah, they'll more likely buy from you if you are authentic and genuine, and show yourself and not pretend that you're something you're not.
Exactly.
Yeah. Crunch, where can people find you if they'd like to work with you or to know more about you?
You can check out my website, which is crunchrunjani.com, and I'm on all social media. If you type in my name in Google, I will appear, Crunch Ranjani. I'm on Instagram, on Facebook, and LinkedIn. I'm getting my Pinterest started up slowly.
Yeah, I started putting my podcast on Pinterest, but it's more of a picture sort of platform, a bit like Instagram. It's not really an informational type platform, so I gave it away. But yeah,
Yeah, I think it's
wasn't
also
getting a lot of reach, so I guess I just didn't bother anymore.
yeah, I think it does take a different kind of strategy to be on Pinterest. I'm not super familiar with it, so I'm just trying to dabble and see what works. I mean, it's all about experimentation at the end,
Absolutely,
right?
yes. If you don't try, you don't know, do you? That's
Mm-hmm.
it. All right, Crunch, thank you so much for joining me. I just want to know, do you have any words of wisdom that you'd like to share today?
Words of wisdom that I'd like to share: show up even if you don't feel ready to, and people will appreciate you for it. I think that's my biggest piece of advice, and it's something that I constantly have to remind myself, because I do have days when I don't want to, it's a bad day, my hair looks like crap, I don't want to put myself out there and say anything. But then if you don't ever make that move, even when you don't feel like you're ready, nobody's ever going to know who you are, what you do, or how you help them. So and there's no harm in just sharing what you have to say, because it might resonate with somebody. And I think that's all we can ask for as business owners who are trying to do some good in the world.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me today. I've loved your content creation ideas and strategies. It's something that everyone really could benefit from.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Talking with the Experts, hosted by Rose Davidson. Make sure you have a look at our back catalogue over at talkingwiththeexperts.com, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any episode. We look forward to your company next time. Talking with the Experts.